All right, I spent so long talking earlier that, for almost 30 minutes, that this is going to be a little longer than I had expected, but I want to cram everything into it. So yeah, after being kind of told about professionalism and all that kind of thing, it's kind of interesting too that being a black person, and I would say people who are in the Latinx, Latina communities understand this too. There is, I don't know how to explain necessarily. Okay, how do I put this into words? There's kind of more of a, even in the queer spaces, there's more of a mask kind of, say if you're more mask presenting, the STEM and more androgynous type categories, I wouldn't say they're not as accepted in Black and Latinx communities, but they're looked at a little bit differently. The reason why I say that is in queer culture, when you look at people of color and those groups, a lot of times you see there's a different dynamic between the masculinity, the femininity. For example, if you look at, I don't really want to make it a racial thing, but it kind of is, just community-wise it is. For example, okay, I'll just give an example because it's easier for me to give examples of my own self. When I'm in queer spaces with Caucasian individuals, I feel less obligation to have specific gender roles. If I'm out on a date or bring a date around my friends, I don't feel certain pressures that I would feel if I was with Black, Latino, Asian people. I feel a little different during those times. So that's one thing that I notice is how different I feel. And for example, I think it's expected to have more of a hard mask kind of energy, and I think it does stem from a form of oppression, because even in a lot of minority ethnic cultures, you do see a lot of these gender expectations. There's machismo culture, and in Black culture, you don't, these people exist, but I'm just saying the way you have to present, the way you're expected to present. I've got nothing against, attraction to a very masculine, female-looking person. I like masked women. I think they're very attractive. But culturally, I think it's looked down upon, kind of if you're a little on the mask presenting side, trying to date someone who's also mask presenting, but you're both women. If you're both minorities, there is a little bit of a stigma to that. I don't know why, but there is. Even if you're both gay, like it's kind of like one of those things where it's like that scene is like maybe too, like a gay area that's not really too accepted, even if it's like you're both masculine presenting women, and it even if it's just a presentation thing, and you both just maybe have short haircuts and like to wear board shorts, like certain things like that, where it's like it doesn't really matter, but it's like I don't really know how to articulate that too clearly, but look around, keep your eyes open, you'll see what I mean. When you follow a lot of content, you see it too. There's kind of a lot of pressure on, people of color, when you're kind of in a mask presenting space, like when you're kind of more mask presenting, you are a little more, expected to be a little more like on the side. I don't know. I don't like using the word hard, but that's kind of what it is. You kind of give more of that presentation off. Not to say that you even are. You can totally be a softie, but I do feel like that's expected of me sometimes. Like I think sometimes I surprise people because they meet me and I'm like I'm not talking about like people off the podcast type of stuff, but I'm just saying like when I meet like friends of friends, for example, I think people are kind of like surprised that like I dress the way I do, I am the race I am, and then I'm just like, I'm a little teddy bear, man. Like I'm harmless. I feel bad when I kill spiders. Like I'm not like really like, I can get angry, I can be irritable, but I, really do love people, and, I'm friendly. I'm cautious. I kind of keep my distance. I can be a little reserved until I really know somebody. It takes me like probably like over a year to kind of really get to know somebody and kind of feel out their vibe and see like, do I really trust this person? And kind of once I start seeing like the good and the bad, then I kind of can feel more comfortable. Like I'm never really comfortable when I first meet people and I don't really know the bad side of them or the things that like might be a little challenging for me to kind of cope with dealing with each other and stuff. If I don't know that, then I'm kind of not going to be as comfortable as when I know. But I don't know if this is specifically as relevant for gender expression, but I feel like sometimes it kind of is, because I really don't know how to articulate it. I think just culturally, there is a lot of like expectation. And even if you look at, say, the 90s or whatever you want to call it, like there are even movies. Okay, if you take movies like Dangerous Minds, for example. This is like an old movie, right? So Dangerous Minds, if you look at some of the clothing styles of some of the kids, the Latina and black women would dress either kind of more mask or femme. And there wasn't really any discussion about queerness necessarily, but it was like you would see either like maybe like the kind of chola style, like the kind of baggy jeans, the sports bra with the open flannel kind of thing, or just like the baggy jeans with the closed flannel and that kind of thing, versus like tightly fitted clothes. Like you see one or the other. You don't really see too much variation. And versus when you look at Michelle Pfeiffer, she's a Caucasian woman with, just, high-waisted jeans, like high-waisted fitted stonewashed mom jeans, and like, fitted knit shirts and stuff. And so it's kind of like you look at the styles and you're like I know there's an age difference, but it's like you look at the styles and you're like, the way that the white women were dressing was pretty distinctly different from the way that the minority women were dressing, when you think about like younger age ranges of people and their styles. Um, and I think that does carry into kind of modern day. Um, there are these different styles. So, I think once I got into grad school, not the first grad school that I graduated from, but the one where I was supposed to be getting a doctorate. When I started that school and I moved to San Diego, I basically came more into a professional look. Now, I used to wear like these Clarks kind of women's dress shoes. They were like closed-toed, like, I don't know what you call them. Like, you could tell that they were a type of dress shoe, but they were just one solid, piece with like not even like a heel. It was like a squared off, like raised back to them, like kind of like an inch maybe. I probably still have them. I used to just like throw them in the trunk of my car in case I needed it for something. I would usually wear like kind of like dress socks, like black socks, fitted jeans that weren't blue jeans. So I'd have like khaki jeans, brown jeans, black jeans, usually those types of colors, maybe some chinos that were fitted. I would usually have those kind of long sleeve button downs from like Target. So it was kind of like, it wasn't quite mask, but it wasn't very femme, and it was like, it looked professional enough, but the shoes were not it for me. I could have done without the shoes. But that was the femmed up part for me. It's like, well, I'm wearing these clearly feminine shoes. I mean, I'm wearing socks too, but it's like, nobody can really like, because the jeans were fitted too. So it was like people couldn't really tell what was going on, but I wasn't wearing like pretty blouses and stuff. Like the shirts were very like, not mask, but like very just like button down. Like they didn't have like curvature to them necessarily. But I was like a thinner size then, too, and that's something that brings me into kind of more what I'm thinking about like nowadays, like from about 2020, I started having like gray hair. My weight was more weight. I'm curvier than I've ever been in my life. And then like as far as like athletics and like injury type things, I definitely notice a difference. And when I think about grad school, so basically young adult college was basically ages about 18 to 28 or so, or 18 to 26 or so, and then grad school was about, because I did like two grad schools over about 3 years each, so it was about ages 26 to 33 or so, and then pretty much working in the field from about age 33 up to now. And so having to think about career and dress choices at work, I mean, there were things about the dress code I didn't even know. I didn't know we couldn't wear sneakers. Somebody else told me that. And then I kind of realized, I kind of have a dress code for myself that nobody's really addressing. Nobody's really on my case about how I dress, like I had a lot of open-minded people around me that just kind of, I wasn't breaking rules like dressing like weird, but I was just wearing what I was wearing. But after about age, like, I want to say around 30, no, I want to say closer to 33 is when I started gain more weight. And then in 2020, just, that that's probably the most drastic change I've noticed between 2020 and 2023, where I actually started feeling like I know that I need to take better care of my health, because I actively started, noticing, mental, emotional, physical, repercussions of just being too sedentary. My job went to work from home, and, I was stuck in the house with all these people, that I didn't want to really even be around. And it was around that time where I started like trying to fix my finances, so I had more opportunities and options of where to live, because that kind of kept me stuck there too, is because I was keeping such a low pay rate, and not really tending to my credit score and all that kind of stuff. I didn't have credit, but I was more into like loans, not so much credit cards. And the thing is about loans, I mean, it's kind of the same thing, but yeah, like I got into those like installment loans where you're like basically you're paying them like 3, 4, 5 times the amount that you borrow. So it's like it doesn't ever make any sense. Like I would do that, I wouldn't budget, and I would just be like, oh yeah, I'll have the money to pay it back right away, and I take the max amount every time too. It's like if I needed like an extra $100 or $200, I didn't take just like the low amount that I needed. I would take the max amount. It's like, screw the $100, let's get to 2,000. It's like, and then like I was just being bad with money. Like it was a stress thing. I didn't really control my spending because I was like overwhelmed, and that's how I coped, was spending, partying. Basically I would go out too much and not pay attention to how much I was spending, because I just wanted to party and just get my mind off things. So like we were partying like 3-4 times a week, and that helped me get through the job, just because I was like, I was still grieving the loss of a potential career path that I thought I was supposed to be on. And, it was a lot to deal with, having to move on from that program. And, I had friends there and social circles that I was, connected to. And, I thought, that those would be negatively impacted, whereas they weren't. I was actually able to still hang out with the same friends and that kind of thing. But I was mostly worried that, the life I created for myself with all my, friends, I had queer people around me. I had different types of people with different gender expressions around me, people who were open-minded to queer spaces and all that kind of stuff. And, when I had to leave the school and then I just started working, it took a while for me to cope with the loss of that potential for the degree and all these other things. It was just a lot, and so that contributed to the partying too, like just kind of trying to like get my head out of it, and just I would only do one thing: work and gym. And I ate healthier at a certain point, but I was definitely feeling like knocked down by the experience. When I look back, I'm like, I definitely grew a lot from that, and I learned more about health. And I think actually when I look at, I don't think it was really age 33. It must have been around age 30 or so that I actually started having more health concerns, because I was in this school program, and that's when I started noticing all this extra stuff coming up, around age 29, 30, somewhere around there. And so I didn't really start tending to it, until because that's basically when I stopped going to the gym regularly. I started eating fast food all the time. I started, having a cider at night to go to sleep. And none of that was working in my favor. And that's probably the first time in my life that I got into those habits. Like, those were like the things I was doing. I'd never done that before in my life, like been so inactive and had alcohol involved as well. Like, it wasn't a lot, but I also wasn't tracking. But I remember I would buy like a 6-pack of cider. And I remember it would help me calm my mind at the end of the night so I could just like knock out and go to sleep. But it wasn't like I wasn't drinking like a 6-pack a night, I don't think. But I do think I did go from drinking maybe one to drinking more. But how much was I drinking? I don't really actually know. I don't think I bought that many 6-packs that often. But that's kind of where it started. And I was just like, I need to sleep, and it helped me sleep. And I don't know where I learned that from. I may have heard it from clients and they mentioned it, but I didn't really know about melatonin and that kind of stuff. I didn't really know about that kind of thing. I wasn't aware of how caffeine was affecting me. The thing I did notice is that, like I always kind of got cramps for the most part in my life, during periods and stuff. But the thing that I noticed the most was how much increased that pain would get. 'Cause I was like, this pain is never that bad, And so like, there were even like days where I had to like leave from class or like not show up to class. Like a couple times that happened. And I remember being like in severe pain, and I was like, this is not normal. And it was because of the stress and the health and stuff like that. And then, eventually, I came across medical marijuana, and got a card to be able to legally have it. And that helped my life a lot, as far as being able to emotionally dive into things and work things out, and process things better, and sleep and that kind of thing. So let's see. But yeah, getting gray hair, gaining weight. One thing that kind of not kept me, but I have a great appreciation for sports. And like I mentioned, like I grew up playing sports, and that is one thing that in our society is one of those things that kind of gives you brownie points with the mask stuff. Like, I know a lot of guys who don't play sports, but they go to the gym and stuff like that. But when there's guys that don't play sports, I feel like they kind of get a little, I don't know. Like, I think maybe their masculinity gets challenged, in a way. And one friend, my brother mentioned to me that one of my friends, when they first started hanging out, mentioned, when he was new to the school, saying like, oh yeah, like you guys play a lot of sports, And I didn't notice it, but like we did, and we were really into athletics. I think we all just liked the way it felt, and we all had our crews. Like, there were like the guys that were really good that would all play together. There were the people who weren't that good that would play together, and then there were just the other people who just didn't play sports at all, pretty much. And so it was like, we had like, we would play kind of co-ed too. And we would play a lot, and we had a fun time. And this was pretty much through high school, and A lot of my friends would skate, rollerblade, surf. A lot of us played soccer. We were really into athletics and stuff. And I think I kind of stopped getting into athletics. Not that I was stopping getting into it, but I've talked about this before, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. But one time that I stopped was my third year, I think, in grad school at Cal State LA. My last year, because I started staying late, and so I no longer wanted to like park off campus and like walk by myself at night in that area. So I would start parking on campus, and that took out about 45 minutes of my day's worth of walking. So I stopped doing that and stopped playing sports. The year before that was my last year playing sports league. And I stopped playing sports and stopped playing team sports. But I think right when I graduated, I started going to the gym. And that summer, all the way through, I think I started working like November of that year when I graduated, and I was doing like P90. It was back when P90X wasn't that old yet. I was doing P90X. I think I did Tap Out, Insanity. Like I had like those three kind of in a cycle, those types of workouts to be able to have access to doing, because I had some friends who shared them with me, and I had copies that I didn't pay for. But basically, I would do those workouts and found them very effective. And I did that all the way until that next year. And I think sometime during that year, I think I worked at this job all the way till till June or May of that next year. And then I think I stopped working out once. I don't know if I stopped working out actually, because I think I got into a school in San Diego. I remember going to an interview in April, and then I'm just going by what clothing sizes I know I wore, because I remember what I wore when I went there. So I wasn't really too out of shape then. And then when I first moved there and moved into an apartment with my first roommate there with his kid, I would go to the gym every day almost. There was this gym at like the Westfield in Mission Valley. I would go to that gym a lot. It was at the mall. I would always park by the Target, get some groceries, go to the gym. I don't know if I went every day, but I think I did. And then I think my second year of grad school in San Diego is maybe when I stopped going to the gym. But that's when all those other habits started creeping in, the bad habits. And then from that point, I stayed kind of out of shape until, I don't know when, but I know there was a time when we started doing workouts at work. And I used to do those once a week, and that would get me in the gym a couple times a week, because I was like, well, I don't want to be around my coworkers and friends at work and like not able to do these 50-minute long workouts, some were intensive, some weren't, but I was like a little bit competitive. Like I was like, I don't want to be the worst one, I don't want to be the one who can't like do however many reps they say or however many sets we're doing. I don't want to have to sit out a set because I'm like out of breath or whatever. So I would like have a snack like an hour before, and I remember having a little bit of C4 and things, and I would just do the workout. It was usually like Mondays or something like that. Like 15 minutes after work would end, we would just start the workout and just work out till like 6 or so. So we would do that workout, and then they changed it into like a cooking class. But I did it, and then there was a certain period where the trainer would come, and then I just stopped going. So that was a time period where I also wasn't working out. So I probably went quite a few years during my 7 years working with this program of not really working out too much. And then I think I did get into decent shape in in like 2021, 2021 snowboard season, because that's when I went to Taos, New Mexico, and I did really well there. 2022 was not a good season. Coming from about November 2021 into April of 2022, that was the worst period of fitness I've ever had in my life. And it definitely has screwed my self-esteem on a lot of different levels when I realized how easily injured I was getting, how much I wasn't able to kind of like do the cardio and the elevation and just the flexibility. And I definitely noticed the toll that it took to not really routinely get exercise. And I feel like it was really only like a year that I wasn't exercising much. Like I would go on walks, like mild walks and stuff, but I did actually have maybe like 2 years or so where I didn't really cook much. I was mostly eating takeout, and I think there was a lot of fast food in there too. Sometimes I wasn't really paying attention. Like I might have thought, oh, this is like a healthier version, but it might not have been really healthier. It just might have seemed healthier. And so, and someone brought that to my attention. There was someone that was on Instagram that was doing training, and it was like a queer person, and I kind of did the consultation, and we started talking about food, and I mentioned like I eat pho and stuff like that, and then the person was like, that's still kind of like fast food, and I was just like, really? And I kind of felt like insulted by it. Like I just wasn't ready to change that. I felt like, I don't really want to change the way I eat, because at that time it wouldn't have been easy for me to change the way I eat, because I was living with people and didn't want to be in the kitchen cooking with them. So a lot of things like that really contributed to what I experience these days. And the athletic thing is something that kind of is related to the kind of mask bit of energy. It's just kind of like that, not that desire, kind of like the willingness to compete, not even if I'm gonna win or whatever, but just kind of like being in a space where you're like training and competing and stuff like that. There's something about that that's kind of got like, people attach masculine energy to that. So you even see females that are like professionals, in not even athletics, but even if you think about careers, for myself being in the psych field most of my life, I was mostly around a lot of females, in the work, especially once we got to the clinical side. Out of the research, there were a whole lot more females, and a lot of them were like very like driven, females, and corporations run by females. It's like they're females at the top. My bosses have been females, and a lot of them are athletic, a lot of them are, they're very organized. And when I would say that I definitely looked up to a lot of them. Like they would be like for sure femme, a lot of them too, but also just like the drive and the motivation, and how they would kind of like, I don't know if you would call it compete, but in a way it was like, yeah, they were out there, they would compete, like doing grant proposals and like, making sure that we were reaching our goals, and like our site was like doing things good and like better than other sites and stuff like that. Like we would, we were basically a company run by younger aged women. Like I had some bosses that turned 30, not all my bosses were 30 when I started working. Like there were bosses I had that were in their 20s. I had bosses maybe a couple years older than me, a couple years younger than me. A lot of us are like similar age, and we could hang out and go out for, well, not the bosses, but like people who eventually became bosses. Before they were bosses, we were hanging out and going out and stuff. So yeah, there was definitely a lot of gender related stuff going on. And then I guess the last thing I wanted to talk about was the emotional expression piece. Is a lot of times with gender, females are typically known or said to have better communication, but I think it's because most of the guys I know are kind of like in the psych space. I'd say most of the guys I know have really good communication skills. I mean, I know men who do and women who do. I know men who don't and women who don't. I can't say if one gender I know communicates better than the other. I would honestly say, when I think about open-mindedness, the people that I knew who didn't grow up ultra religious, I feel like their style of communication is a little more effective and open-minded, and not so much like they don't get like their egos bruised as easily when there's something that they don't disagree with, or that they don't agree with. And when there's like a little bit of like, I feel like they kind of are able to kind of like handle themselves, carry themselves better without like starting debates and starting fights and arguments. And I don't know if I've noticed it really gender. I've noticed it more like the culture of just like people needing to be right and all that kind of stuff. That definitely plays into it. And just the open-mindedness, for me, is a style of communication just in general. I think it creates more trust. For me anyways, I have a better experience trusting people when they're really open-minded. So but yeah, I don't think it's all about clothing. Like, these are all the things that I'm kind of mentioning. And the reason why the weight kind of gets to me is because, having a curvier shape, it's like sometimes I'm like, oh, there's some shirts that I might want. And now I'm like shopping in the larges versus shopping in the mediums. And it's like, and they're like guy cut shirts. So now they're like super, like the arms are long and the bottom of it is long just so it can fit like my chest and stomach, versus like before, I was able to fit mediums a lot better. So right now I'm kind of just working on my fitness for snowboarding and weight related things. And my goal is to get my cardio up. I don't want to do it, but I might start doing 2-a-days. Just because I know that does help me. But I do need to get my day going because I need to eat breakfast and get on with my morning. But that's it for now. Thanks for listening.